Hey, everybody. I'm Frank Fear. Greg is not here tonight. Hello, Greg, wherever you might be. You're on Mountaineer Locker Room tonight, and I'm so pleased you've taken the time to join us. Great show. We're going to talk some basketball, big news on campus today, and we're also going to talk about our feature story going back in time, given the subtitle of the show, Then and Now. We're going to do the then and that incredible 1970 rather, Pitt, West Virginia game. And we have two guests with us. And so we're excited to have you here. And without further ado, what I'm going to do is bring in my sidekicks, Daryl Prue. You all know Daryl, Mickey Plumley, and Shane Stone Wolfley. As I was telling the guys, I shouldn't have been drinking so much before the show. It was all water, but I get bloated, and it's a problem. So, at any rate, what am I calling you Shane for, Stone? That's terrible. In fact, I can't even read it. So great to have you all here. So how you all doing, by the way?
Great.
Mickey,
it's a great day to be a Mountaineer, no matter where you may be today.
Absolutely. Isn't that true? And Stone,
Yeah.
you've been working hard all day, so we appreciate your coming in tonight. How are you doing? Well, Stone is Stone. Oh boy. Okay, we're gonna remove Stone, and hopefully he'll be able to come back in. But the big news today, guys, obviously, is what happened with the basketball program. Just an incredible game against Cincinnati yesterday in the tournament. 16-point lead, evaporated very quickly in the second half with three TOs, technicals, very quickly in succession. And what we had hoped would be an incredible win, given the fact that Cincinnati won by, I think, 36 up in Cincy. That doesn't happen, and West Virginia lost by 5. And today, not unexpected, I think, Daryl, we'll start with you. Ren Baker announced that the head coach, Josh Eilert, and the staff have been removed, and that a national search has started for a new basketball coach. So, Daryl, your take on the circumstances?
Yeah, I think they're trying to get rid of everything Bob Huggins right now. Usually you'll keep the staff until they hire the head coach, and until he brings everybody in, they usually, use that transition there. But I guess they just wiping and clean, and everybody clean out the house. He either has someone or he just getting rid of everything Bob Huggins.
Yeah. Well, and I want to get Stone's take on this in a second. When you think about the circumstances around the Huggins departure, and you think about the fact that Josh didn't have head coaching experience, really not even assistant in terms of coaching experience, and none of the guys that he brought in as assistants did either, because they're all young, really. This looks to me to be a win-win situation. My guess is they're going to be picked up somewhere. And this opportunity they had, even though it ended up with 23 losses, it's we just have to swallow hard and say, hey, sometimes these things happen, but that there are some benefits to certain people. And I think those guys are going to land on their feet. Mickey, what are your thoughts?
Well, certainly disappointing, but kudos to Josh and the job that he did. I mean, just coming out of the blue without, as you mentioned, Frank, any head coaching experience or, a magnitude of assistant coaching experience. And, the fact that he, kept the faith and he did all that he could do within the confines of the circumstances within which he was charged to operate, real feather in his cap, I think. And, 9-23, not something that you have fond memories of, but hey, who'll ever forget that win over Kansas in the Coliseum that day, huh?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And let me all of us extend to Kelly McCourt, happy birthday. Tremendous supporter of the program, Kelly. So God bless you and happy birthday to you. Yeah, I agree. And in fact, today in the presser, I don't know how many of you had a chance to watch that or listen to it. That's exactly what AD Baker said. That if you look at how he comported himself and how he stepped up, it was really it was exemplary. And so that's the other thing I would say. You'll have to look at people and how they comport themselves under times of stress, and he certainly did. And so, your thoughts, more thoughts on it, Daryl? What do you think is going to come next?
I mean, I thought, it was a lot thrown at them. And then you had to hire a bunch of new people. You wasn't allowed to keep Everhart, some experience. And you hired, 3 guys that didn't have any assistant experience. He only had 1 year's assistant experience, even though he's been, director of operations for a long time. And, so you hit the door running, then you have the guy coming to the games, and he probably was coming to the practices. So it was just, he wasn't set up to win. He was set up just to get through the year. They got through the year. They competed for a while. Just some games is unfortunate. I think some people were misled by the talent. I don't think they were overly talented. I think they had good talent, but they wasn't overly talented, to win the Big 12. In the Big 12, you need a couple of pros to really win, or everybody's playing together. And sometimes they didn't play together, sometimes they didn't defend together. So it was a lot of different things. But he had to work. I'm talking about Josh had to work the PR part, the fan part. Not even he didn't get a chance to do the coaching part because he had so much other stuff that he had to work. As a head coach. That he probably had a whole lot of sleepless nights. So
Yeah, no, I agree.
sad.
I agree.
It's sad. Hopefully he gets another job, but it's sad that they didn't put enough people around him. Like if I get the job, I'm hiring 2 guys that has a lot of experience. One
Yeah.
probably be a former head coach, and I'm gonna say, hey, I'm gonna hire Coach Calley as my consultant. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just to have experience, because you're gonna run into things that they've been through, and you can bounce it off of them without stressing about it.
Yeah. If you have a chance, John Antonic, who was on the show last week, who writes, obviously, is employed by West Virginia Sports Content, Senior Director of Sports Content, had a really good article in WVU Sports today. He covered the press conference. And I thought that he did a great job of putting the past in perspective and what happened and why Ren Baker really didn't have a choice. He made the choice he had to make. But also, I thought both John and Ren are very good at their jobs, and both did a good job. John and Prent and Ren in front of the camera of describing what comes next. And it was said very subtly, or not in a pounding the desk way, but he said, we really got to start building a program, not a team. And that's a way of saying the portal has a place, but the portal can't be the primary entry. You can't build a program right around a portal. And yet what he also said was the next coach has to be one who is, using my words, sort of consummate with the use of the portal. You can't deny the portal, so you have to be able to use it. But like everything in balance, and I think that's what he said. And I'll stop with this. One of the things that John said last week is, he said, we're really in good hands with Ren Baker because he has a basketball background. And he says, you can't imagine the number of coaches around the country who look for institutions where the AD is a basketball person when there's a basketball search. I'm sure the same thing goes for football. And so he's going to use his connections, and he has them. And what I expect is that West Virginia may not likely, given the budget situation, end up with a quote unquote name coach, but likely will do what they did several years ago, bringing in Coach Brown in football. And that is a person who's been successful elsewhere at maybe a group of 5 school or a lower level Power 5 school, and then hand the basketball to him. But what do you guys think, Mickey, Daryl? Does that make any sense to you?
Yeah, I've been saying it for a year. I know you heard me say it with Dale that it's just a team every year. It's like an AAU team. when you go through the portal. It's like you got to get these young guys, and you got to have all the other successful teams still recruit the younger guys. So but you got to use a portal as well.
Yeah.
As far as the coaching thing, I think there's a number of good coaches out there. Uh, West Virginia's a unique place. So the fans is we can't hopefully they win more than 9 games next year, but they're starting over. You got to understand it might not be 0 players at the end of the season. You know what I mean? So now they got to build again through high school and through the junior college and the portal. So it's going to be like it was the last 2 years, and
That's right.
I give it time. And I think it's going to be a 2, 3, maybe 4 year thing. But when they get it back together, rolling as a program, not just a team. Catlett had a program. Beeline built the program again. Huggins started off as a program. Then all of a sudden, when the portal came up, everybody thought you had to go to the portal to get the older guys. And some teams like Michigan had a good year. I remember Hunter Dickinson's first year, but Hunter Dickinson was a freshman.
Yeah.
He got 2 good portal guys. They were lucky to have those 2 because they fit in. A lot of the portal guys are not fitting in. They just, 1 is for the money. 2, they're either lower level guys that's trying to move up to higher levels. And there's a big difference playing, Big 12 than it is playing the NEC conference. So it's no offense to them, but it's a big difference. But the fans going to have some patience, because it's whoever. I don't care what name they bring in here, they're still going to have trouble. They may win more games, but it's still not going to be what all the expectations are as far as winning.
Yeah, I agree with you. On this portal stuff, and Mickey and I have talked about this. Of course, it didn't exist when you were playing for the Mountaineers. But take a look at Jose Perez, who came in from the East Coast and was dismissed which really took a lot of courage. He was a prime guy, dismissed by Josh Eilert, and then he transferred to Arizona State. Well, I don't know if you've heard this or the fans have heard this. He did fairly well, I think, really well at Arizona State. Was in double figures. And he quit the team before the Pac-12 tournament and to play pro overseas. And so I'm not criticizing him or I am singling him out. But I'm just saying you've got to be very careful when you do the portal, that you bring in not only people who can basketball, but people that can give you some stability over time. But, we'll close with this, Mickey. I think this is a very similar situation to WVU football. In 1965, sort of the bottom came out. And in 1966, when Carlin came in, he wasn't going to build a team. He was going to build a program. And it took a while, took a couple of years to get sea legs. You could see the progress each year. And then, you really hit pay dirt starting in 1968 and then 1969 with the Peach Bowl. And I think Daryl's right. We've got to be patient. This is not going to be an overnight construction, but I don't know it just reminds me very much of that transition to Carlin in 66.
It does to me as well, Frank. And even to some extent to Coach Bowden taking over the realm as the head coach in 1970. A lot of people may have seen his press conference, Coach Bowden's press conference, when he was appointed head coach. He said he'd been asked what he was going to change. And he said he wasn't going to change anything with the program because you don't change a winner. Well, now we're almost in an exactly opposite situation here, as Daryl pointed out, that we've got to take some time. Again, as Jim Carlin did when he came in the 65, 66 era, you've got to get your program in, your methodologies, your beliefs, and you got to get the buy-in of the players. And Daryl, maybe you can speak to that just a little bit. But in addition to, you don't just put a program in and get immediate buy-in to it, right, Daryl? It takes a while for players to say, "Hey, this can produce a winner for us," and I'm all in, Coach.
Yeah. So when I went to Georgetown, we was in transition. We came from it was from Big John Thompson to Craig Eschert to Little John Thompson, and it was a transition. And the buy-in, the group the guys that was there before, we had a younger group. So we had a mixture of talent, with freshmen and the older guys. You know, the first year was okay. Second year, Sweet 16. You know, the guys bought in, like you said, Mickey. And you know, and I was the same thing at Morgan State. You know, went from the first year we won the regular season, lost in the we lost in the MEAC tournament. Then the next year we won the MEAC tournament, beat Maryland, end up playing in the NCAA, and it's the buy-in. You know, the buy-in. I think one of the mistakes, I'm not sure, I can't say this 100%, and what you said, what Ren Baker said about building a program, you know, those, you know, I think, you know, in recruiting, you can get lazy. And what I mean by, you could go by the portal and just look at the portal and see who's out there. Oh, he got good numbers, but then you don't call the coaching staff, ask what kind of person he is. You don't call the high school coach. You don't call the AAU guy. So you get lazy before that's what everybody do. You know, this staff is not that savvy enough to go out there and, you know, and ruffle the bushes and have contacts like that. And while you're there this year, bring in players. Like I brought in the 7-footers, just bring in players so the new AD can see that you're trying to build a program, and that may would have helped your cause a little bit. But you know, you can't wait until the season over and all of a sudden you're just looking in the portal every day. That's right. That's been lazy. You know what I mean?
No, you just can't do that.
This past summer and in December, we have a called DC Live. It's a live NCAA event. And I see Kansas State here. I see everybody else here but West Virginia. You know, I just go because, and I sit with the coaches and I might wear a West Virginia shirt. You know, just the kids don't know, you know what I mean? But that's a problem. And it's 3 hours away. Kansas State can recruit a kid from this area, you know what I mean, and be here with 4 guys on their staff or the head coach, the assistants. You know what I mean? Like that has to change. You know what I mean? There's a lot of Division I talent because it was teams from out of town that was here in December, and there's nobody here from West Virginia. And that's the things you have to do. And you know, when Larry Harrison was there as assistant coach, he was down here all the time. You know, asking me, you know, what players should I look for? What players should I look for? And I'll send him a list of names. He asked me, have you seen that player? Can you go see that player for me? That's the relationships you have to have and an experience in other cities. And, you know, and your staff has to have that, because even if a kid calls not that good and wants to come for unofficial, let him come. You don't ever know how good he is. He might get somebody else. He might tell you about somebody else. And that's the savviness of the staff that you didn't have because they were so young, you know. So, you know, not young in age, just young in the game.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, you know, it's putting up a chart here, guys, that you see if I can get you guys over there. And I'm going to try to pull this off here, too, so that we can see you all. There we go. That's me. Now that the season is over, talking about building programs, here is a chart. And we're going to go into more detail next week because we're going to focus on Gail Catlett, the Catlett era, because he was coached for so long and he built a program. You know, we generally have short attention spans. But if you look at that, Gail Catlett was coached for 24 years, and he has played 100. The numbers in red are the number one on this list. 720 games played, over 400 games won. And the only one that has a red next to the number, we talked about him last week, was Fred Schaus, who took the Mountaineers to the NCAA championship in 1959 at 80%. But what's interesting about all those guys on that list, the top four, is the fact that they're around 60%, 62, 63%, except for Schaus, that's 80%. And I was mentioning to one of our guests tonight, Dave Havern, who's going to be with us later, that that was the heyday for WVU basketball, 1955 to 1965, with Fred Schaus and then George King, who went on to Purdue, and then Schaus eventually, after the Lakers and after he coached at WVU, went to Purdue. But we'll talk more about that and get into all the mechanics of why Catlett was successful, and of course Daryl played during that period, and he can speak firsthand. And we're going to talk a lot more about Daryl's career too. So Let me get this back over here. Super. So now we're going to make a transition, guys. And in fact, I'm glad, Mickey, you brought up Bobby Bowden, because the mea culpa, so to speak, that Bobby mentioned after the 70 game against Pitt probably wouldn't have played that second half the way he did with the strategy had he had more experience as a head coach. But be that as it may. So what we're going to do now is we're going to watch a video we've put together that includes a long interview with Greg joins me in it with the two quarterbacks of that day, Dave Havern, who's going to be with us later, who was the quarterback for Pitt, and then Mike Sherwood, who was the quarterback for West Virginia. We ran into a little bit of technical difficulties. I was mentioning to Dave before we went on the air tonight. And so I'm going to have to do some quick production side things to get this video going. And so I'm going to put this up and I'm going to throw you guys back into the back room. And then we're going to try to bring this video up and see if we can do it. I got to do a few things here, guys. So just bear with me. We're going to start here. There we go. Mm, mm.
Huh?
Is it true that you guys cannot see the video?
I just got the pit in the WVU logo.
Okay. Okay. I'm sorry, guys. I think
No,
that's my fault. And I think if I take that down, I think it'll work. And I apologize
no,
to
Frank. Yeah,
everyone for that.
about
No
that.
problem.
I apologize if I didn't catch one of the things that I needed to do to be able to do this. So I think what I can do now is I can start over again. And I really apologize for that. But let's see what we can do here to be able to make up for this.
No
And
worries, Frank. Whatever you got.
okay, like for the folks who are watching, it's I always worry about them, but we couldn't do it the way we wanted to do it, and so we had to figure out a way around it. And so I think this will work now. So and somebody text me if it's working so that I know. And here we go.
You got it.
Okay, so let's see if we can get this.
Mm-mm. Uh,
It's rolling, Frank, but no sound.
Oh, boy. And you're saying there's no sound,
No.
guys?
Not on my end.
Boy, I'll
Video's
tell you.
running though.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is to try the way that I don't think was working this afternoon, but who knows? It may work. And if it doesn't work, what we'll do is we'll just have a conversation. But let's just see if this works. It works now. So let me see if I can do it. Let's remove that. And then I'm going to go we're trying to make this platform do things that it just doesn't want to do. So let's see if this works. And if it does, we'll go from there. But the audio and the video was not syncing before. So let's hope that it syncs tonight.
Pitt and West Virginia have been playing football since 1895, but these two old arch rivals never played it like they did on October 17, 1970. A homecoming crowd of 45,000 turned out for one of the most incredible comebacks of all time. With quarterback John Hogan on the shelf, Dave Havern drew the starting assignment. It was a game Havern will never forget. The game begins with West Virginia's high-powered offense practically blowing Pitt right off the field. The Mountaineers take a quick 14-0 lead. Then they make it 21-0. But West Virginia keeps pounding, and it's 28-8. And then, unbelievably, it's 35-8. The score is West Virginia 35, Pitt 30, with enough time to pull off the impossible.
Here come the Panthers. Second down, 7 at the West Virginia 43. He's handing off to Denny Ferris. Cuts the corner. Over the 40. Knocked out of bounds at about the 38-yard line. Here come the Panthers now. High formation. Havern fakes to Ferris. He's passing for Esposito. He's got him at the 25. Out of bounds at the 21. First down, Pitt at the West Virginia 21-yard line. Havern handing off to Ferris, trying to get wide, turns the corner and gets over the 20 down into about the 17-yard line. Havern gives off to Ferris. He bucks into the center of the line, gets down to about the 15-yard line, maybe the 16. 3 minutes in this football game. Havern gets to Garnett. He paddles his way forward, but not enough for the first down. 4th and 1 for Pitt at the West Virginia 12. Havern to Esposito. I think he made it. I think he got into about the 10. Let's wait and see if it's received. No signal from the official as yet. They're calling for a measurement. They're bringing the 6 in. On this decision hinges the outcome of this football game, ladies and gentlemen. They made it. First down, Pitt. First and 10 for Pitt at the West Virginia 11. To Denny Ferris over the right side and through for a couple of yards down to about the 8. 35-30 West Virginia. Pitt with the football. Denny Ferris taking it in to about the 5. It'll bring up a 3rd and 4 for Pitt. Big play. Moyer wide to right. Havern's going to pass. He's throwing. Touchdown. Pitt. Little buck on it. The Panthers have capped out an amazing comeback. They're ahead, and Havern was hurt. Havern is stretched out on the field as the Panthers have gone ahead 36-35 in an unbelievable football game, ladies and gentlemen. And who would believe it? West Virginia leading 35-8 at halftime. Pitt is going to win this football game with a great second half comeback.
we welcome all of you to a very, very special segment of tonight's show. We're very, very pleased to have two of the principals, Greg and I, two of the principals from the 1970 West Virginia Pitt game, historic game, one of the biggest comebacks in college football history, certainly then, and still it's on the list. And we have the two quarterbacks, Dave Havern from Pitt and Mike Sherwood from WVU. And Greg, it's just so wonderful to see these two icons and legends together. And one of the things that was amazing, maybe not so much when you think about it, is that each of them would never be on the field when the other one was on it. So they're actually, would it be fair to say, meeting for the first time today? Would that be fair?
I would guess.
That's great. We had a lot of guests on where two people were on and one was the runner and the other was the tackler, but that's not the case here. So, but I think one of the things that might be important, and Greg knows this, because the theme of the show is then and now. So part of our function on the show is to really, I think, inform people about the history of college football, in our case, specifically West Virginia, and in this case, the connection to the backyard brawl. But to introduce yourself so that those who are unfamiliar or weren't alive even during the game but follow the teams now will get to know you. Why don't we start with our guest from Pitt, Dave? Provide us a snapshot of your background.
Well, thanks. First of all, it's nice to be here. It's I got, as 90 miles away in rivalries make us. It's still, you have a warm spot. I don't know what Mike does for us, but certainly the Pitt, me, I always have a fondness for Mountaineers. I know a lot of them, banged into it. My brother-in-law, Tom Sikowski, made a whole lot of tackles for you guys at linebacker over the years. But it's nice to be on the show. I appreciate you thinking about us. It's only been 52 years ago that Mike and I were doing this stuff. So, and we're still doing a lot of it. But yeah, I coached for a while in college. I coached at IUP for a few years, and then got into business. Ended up being a head coach at Shadyside Academy, a WPIL school, but at a private school, and did that. Retired about 7 years ago from that. Still coach the quarterbacks out there. Got the 4 good grown-up kids and going on 14 grandkids. Wow. So yeah, that's kind of cool. Coached and enjoyed the heck out of that, and still coaching. And actually got to coach somebody you guys might be aware of. I don't know if you ever heard of this kid, Mark Bolger. He had a little bit of success. I think we have. Yeah. School. And so actually he was my third NFL quarterback. Well, once, at Georgia Kites, when I was coaching at IUP, had a couple of years with the Jets, and then Mark, and then I got a kid now that played quarterback for me technically at Shadyside, Sky Moore. He's playing slot for the Kansas City Chiefs now. And he was pretty good. I was a real good coach when I was coaching those guys. I was a much better coach.
Great. Before we get to Mike, you mentioned Tom Sikowski, who lives down in Lexington, Kentucky area.
Just moved down.
I heard something the other day from a mutual friend of mine, a fellow by the name of Steve Bako, who also is originally from the Pittsburgh area and then from Kentucky, that he said, Tom Sikowski, who he knows, he said, that's Dave Havern's brother-in-law. So here's the question. I looked at the stats the other day from the 1971 West Virginia Pitt game.
Okay.
Not the 70 game here.
Yeah.
But in 71, you came to Morgantown,
yep,
and West Virginia got revenge. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And there was Tom Sikowski, who hadn't played a lot, intercepts a pass.
Yeah, it wasn't me.
Boy, that was quick.
wasn't me. It was there's an interesting story about it. And I don't want to. I know want to talk to Mike too, but that game, I think it was 13-9.
That's right, it was.
And it was the year after the other game. But so we had the ball on R2, and Bobby Kazeel was our center, and he was first center drafted that year. Played for the Saints and played for the Skins for a long, long time. Had a real droll sense of humor. So we're running out onto the field. We got 98 yards to go, and about 8 minutes. And he looks at me and says, "Steve, we win this one, they'll be talking about you forever." So we get out to about the 50, and we're moving the ball. and I'm running, throwing, we got a pass, and I throw a little swing pass to a kid, and I get hit, and I think it was Billy Joe Mantooth. I mean, I think it was Billy, God bless him. And I slide down, and I said, hell, I can't move my shoulder. We ran into the locker room in the old stadium, which was the greatest place in the world. I mean, God, like, I wish, the new one's beautiful, but man, there's something like Morgan Mountaineer Field. Anyway, we were running, and it was back in the day, it's better living through chemistry, and so our team gives me the first one, and I got nothing, and he gives me another one. He said, I got nothing. I said, what are we looking for? He says, you're looking for like a little electric shock. And he gives me the next one, and man, it flops up. And I go, that's good. And we come running out, and there's all kids are sitting they're standing in the end zone, which is just great atmosphere. And it was Bobby Medwood, another kid from McKees Rocks, throws it to Zeke. And I just look, I said, it wasn't me. The long story, it wasn't me.
Yeah, there you go. Well, I'll tell you, Mike, welcome to the Dave Havern Show here. Go ahead, Mike, your background, please.
Yeah, I'm originally from Bel Air, Ohio. It's where I'm living now. I moved back here a little over 40 years ago. But when I finished playing, I stayed for 3 years as a grad assistant at WVU, and then I coached for 6 years at Bethany College and Waynesburg College, and then I came back home here, and during the 35 years I was here, I was the head football coach for a few years, and then I was the athletic director. And then I spent 21 years in administration as an assistant principal and retired from that. And then actually went back and worked for 4 years and just as the athletic director again. They asked me to come back to the school, and I did. And worked until 2 years ago, and I retired finally, officially 2 years ago. And like Dave, I've got 2 kids. I've got a daughter that graduated from WVU and a son that graduated from Ohio State. I have 5 grandchildren, and I'm back here where it all started.
Yeah, wow, what great memories! And you guys weren't in the same class. Mike, you graduated after the 70 season, and Dave, you played, was it 70, 71?
And sure, Mike, in 69. So Mike, were you a freshman in 67, Mike?
Yes, in 67. Yeah, we
okay,
came
yeah,
in
so
together.
we were the same. That was before freshman, because we played you guys opener down in Aliquippa or down in Beaver Valley, I think. So yeah, so our sophomore years were congruent, and then I had mono going into the 69 season. So I got shirted then. So Mike finished up playing in 70. I finished in 71. Yeah. So Mike, you weren't the quarterback in that 71 game then?
No.
Okay.
No, that would have been Bernie Gallipa.
Who I played with in Wheeling, with and Kirchner and Ox and Desmos and those guys. And
all those guys,
that was great.
I've sat here and I want to tell both of these guys, what a pleasure this is for people like me. I know Frank, when you wrote the book, got me involved with a lot of these guys who played back then. I vaguely remember these games. I watched them. I was only 9 or 10 years old. No offense, guys.
2 years old.
Yeah. but I do remember bits and pieces, and I've watched a lot of it film, and it is so much fun to hear all these great stories and these reflections. And I just can't tell you how much we appreciate both of you.
Say that I'm sure Dave feels the same way. We're appreciative of just being remembered at this point.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure how many people out there listening are actually going to have any recollection of us playing.
There'll be a lot of Google action, Mike.
Yeah, that's right.
Plus the film's in black and white too. So
yeah.
And I know Greg shares this with me, and I said it a bit before. There's so much focus on what's going on. We're going to have spring practice pretty soon for both schools, and season's right around the corner. And WVU's opening up big home game against Penn State in the end of August. But there's a history to all of this that is not only so much fun, but it's very informative in terms of what's going on in the world. We were talking earlier that the game we're talking about today, the 1970 game, Dave had a repeat the following year against Navy that ended up a big comeback that ended up to be the same exact score, 36-35 Pitt. And that's what are the possibilities of that? But the bottom line is that I think it's important for people to know, and I think it's especially for the younger fans. So they really appreciate the people, because we all stand on the shoulders of others, for Pete's sake. We know that.
Yep.
Well, let's put the 1970 season in perspective. And each of you could talk about what your thoughts were going into the season. The game we're going to talk about was in October. Again, let's start with you, Dave, in terms of the Pitt season, because you started out reasonably well. Lost the opener, I think it was the opener to UCLA, but then went on a winning streak before the Mountaineers came to town in October.
Yeah. I was breaking in a new coach. we didn't see eye to eye on a lot of things. Carl DePasqua, God bless him. And but they came in '69, the year I was redshirted, so they didn't know me, and so it was we were fighting. There was like a three-way battle for the job, So it's like you had that on my mind, and then just got edged by UCLA at home, and then won I think the West Virginia game was the fourth straight. We beat Miami the next week, and we hadn't been very good. I mean, it was Dave Hart, the guy who recruited me, and we was 3-27. So that was the last year was my sophomore year in '68, and then '69 was Carl DePasqua's first year, and they were maybe 3-7. I think we were still playing 10 games at that time. And probably the reason I got to play the whole West Virginia game is because John Hogan, the guy was the primary, my primary competition, twisted his knee down at Navy, like in a 10-8 game. So I probably wouldn't have made the second half because the first half was so bad for me, things like that. So we were like 5-1, not used to being 5-1. It was rarefied air. Beat Miami the next week, I think, to go 5-1 and you get ranked for the first time in maybe 10 years or something like that, but at a cost of like really, just attrition. We had tight ends playing linebackers and guards playing fullback. It was really, and I think we lost the last four. So we ended up, so it wasn't, it wasn't a turnaround, but there was a couple or three, nice weeks where we were on a roll.
Well, Greg, it was a flip for West Virginia. Mike, obviously you guys won the Peach Bowl the year before. Bobby Bowden was now the coach. You had come off really, and I was there, the big upset against Duke the week before. And so,
Right.
Yeah. So talk about how you guys were thinking going into the 1970 season, and then your thoughts, particularly after the Duke loss, going into the Pitt game up at Pitt Stadium.
Yeah, we were very optimistic going into the season because we had a lot of our people back. We were missing some really good players too, but we were very optimistic. Started off, I think we won the first four or something like that. Can't remember exactly how many. And then the Duke game was a real downer for us, And interesting fact there, that was the last time I think that the players ever stayed on campus the night before a game, because we were all still staying in the dormitories then, and all the football players, we all lived at Towers, and in the middle of the night they pulled a fire alarm and they evacuated the buildings, and so we stood outside the night before the Duke game for about an hour and a half, I think. In the middle of the night, and of course, when you got a game the next day, it's a little tough to get back to sleep and all. And so, the whole thing was just kind of out of whack. And then they stopped us one time down on the goal line on a fourth down play and kind of turned the game around, and we lost that. And so, it was a little bit of a downer. But then we went into the Pitt game, and we were certainly very confident going into the game. But the result of that game really put us in a funk, and we didn't play great for the next couple of weeks. We went to Penn State and just got slaughtered, and that was a game that was unexpected because Penn State was not so much the loss, but the way that it happened. Because Penn State, I think they were only like 7-3 that year, something like that, and it was kind of a down year for them. And then probably the most rewarding part of the season was the last game against Syracuse, because Syracuse had beaten both Pitt and Penn State during the season, and our last game there, we were able to come back and beat Syracuse in the last home game that year, and that was probably the most rewarding part of that season.
Yeah, when I hear these teams that they played, I think the whole time I was growing up, those were the teams we played, and then when the Big East started and then fell apart, I mean, it's a whole new world now. And my fondest memories as a Mountaineer fan, growing up, was turning that radio on at noon on Saturday and listening to Jack Fleming, and that's what we did, and we loved that, and I still miss doing that, And I interviewed Tony Caridi one time and asked him about following in the footsteps of Jack Fleming. Of course, he said that can never happen. I couldn't fill his shoes for anything, but and I told him it's just not the same. I love listening to him, Tony, but it's just not the same. And I think my fondest memories are listening to those games back in the late 60s, early 70s, mid 70s. Just fantastic. And these memories that these teams that they play, it brings up, it does make you miss these rivalries and these Eastern games. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was thinking, Dave, as Greg was saying that, Ed Conway, we played a clip from Ed Conway. Unfortunately, he passed away not too many years after that,
really.
throat cancer. But what a voice when you think of Fleming and Conway.
Yeah.
Great voices you just don't forget. They're with you.
Yeah.
And then you have Bob Prince, of course, and Myron Cope, and you got to keep on going and going and going. These guys are legendary. Anyway, so for those who are familiar and those who are learning it today, it was a tale of two stories, really, cities, so to speak, of that game. First half was all WVU. So I wrote in the book, my wife and I, Kathy, got there late. We're both WVU alums, so we got there late. And by the time we got there, it was 21-0. I think it was Eddie Williams had just scored another touchdown. And then before you know it, Braxton breaks away. Mike, you threw, it was a great play. And we've got it in the video that people have seen of you throwing that pass to Braxton as he breaks down the middle to score a touchdown with, I think, about 20 seconds left in the first half to make it 35-8. I know that oftentimes, Braxton would come in and say something about I'm open and so on. Was that you? Was it Bobby Bowden? Was it how did that? Do you remember how that play came to? It was just beautiful.
Well, at that point, Coach Bowden had gotten to the point where he and Coach Signetti had gotten to the point where they were pretty much letting me call plays. Of course, we certainly went over, down and distance situations and places on the field and, time, score, all those kind of things. But that was a play. And as I recall, Jim was tight end, and on a lot of our passes at that point, he was our hot. He ran a lot of hot routes for us, where we could throw the ball off of blitzing linebackers. And I believe that may have been, one of those calls where the linebacker blitzed and we would just throw the dump to him then.
So if you guys could talk about, and actually in the book, I have some descriptions of both the Pitt locker room and also the West Virginia locker room. And I know, Mike, you told me the story about walking off the field with Bobby Bowden. So obviously the adjustments or changes were made during halftime that carried into the second half. So Mike, why don't we start with you this time in terms of take us through walking off the field and halftime and what you guys plan for the second half.
Yeah, obviously we had good success against them the two previous years. We threw the ball against them a lot in '68, and then in '69 we ran the ball real well, and you know we I think it was like 38-15 and 49-18, something like that. And, you know, then we're 35-6 at the half or 35-8 at the half. And I was walking off with Coach Bowden. And like I told you, Frank, if old Pitt Stadium was still there, I could take you to the spot where we were walking off together. And he said to me, he said, boy, you've owned these guys the last 3 years. And I said, well, for 2.5 games anyhow, Coach, you know, just making small talk, not realizing that maybe I was going to be a prophet. and so that was the situation you were talking about. And as I recall at halftime, you know, we really didn't make many adjustments. The only thing Coach Bowden had told me was first half, our game plan against them was to you know, throw a lot of bootlegs and to run the ball outside, run our traps inside, because they were a big physical front, and we had a much quicker team offensively than their defensive team. And so, you know, our whole plan was to finesse them in that game, and that's what we did the whole first half. And at halftime, Coach Bowden said, hey, look, second half, let's just you know, just run the ball, run the dives, and let's, you know, get the game over with. And of course, that's why if you ever talk to him, he would have told you that was one of the worst defeats, if not the worst defeat he ever had. And as a result, he said, I never took my foot off the gas again. And I can remember not a confrontation, but I guess a discussion between he and Lou Holtz the next year, because Lou Holtz was upset that they ran the score up on him, and Coach Bowden told him, he said, that's your job to keep the score down, not mine. He said, I never called the dogs off after that. And so what had happened too is they scored on a drive right. They had a drive, and then when we came out the second half, they had a long drive and scored, and we went out and we ran 3 plays, punted, and they got the ball, and then they had another long drive. So our offense was off the field for a long time, a long period of time, counting the halftime. And then we tried to go back to what we were doing before and couldn't get it going really until the last drive. And I think the game ended on a pass when one of our receivers caught a ball and got hit and fumbled, and they recovered and ran the clock out. And so, you know, from our perspective, that's how everything went. You know, there weren't many adjustments or anything at halftime, and they came out and ran the ball, and I think they ran 60-some plays in the second half.
Yeah, WVU only had 15 plays in the second half. Years were driving, and I turned to Kathy, still remembered. I said, we're going to come back and win this game. And it was Wayne Porter, very reliable receiver, as you know, caught it, and he was hit, and he fumbled on the 36, I think. But yeah, so it's like, wow.
Mike was being humble, and they owned us. I mean, could do nothing against them from Mike and Braxton, and was it Eddie Williams? I think was a running back.
Eddie Williams and Bob Gresham.
Yeah, I mean, you guys were loaded. That was a good team, man. And he was absolutely. But Mike said, yeah, they went outside. We were big up front. Yeah, we would have won the game in a phone booth. Any fights. But it was just we did nothing right at all. We got, and it wasn't, the reason we weren't doing anything right is because West Virginia was pounding us. But we went in at the half, and nobody was like real emotional. Nobody was down. We'd been there before, unfortunately, we were in a little bit of a streak at the time, but a lot of times we went in, without the lead at halftime. And it was just, the only adjustment that the coaches made, they said, okay, we're going to go to a power I. We were bigger and stronger than West Virginia, just personnel wise. So we went in and just no fiery speeches or anything like that, just go out and play, and just ran the ball and started to have some success doing it. Didn't punt which was huge because we probably punted 4 or 5 times in the first half. I don't think we had more than 2 first downs, But yeah, it wasn't other than the adjustment, which a lot of people talk about the offense. But what to going back what Mike said, he wasn't on the field much. I mean, and because we had such long drives on offense, but our defense, it was suspect at times, and they stood up pretty strong, and it was hard. Like Mike, like you said, his offense had been off the field for about 45 minutes when you looked at the half and then the first drive. I think because the 4 drives, the shortest drive was like 58 yards or something like that, So, and I think we probably threw 8 or 10 balls in the second half. Didn't throw a lot, but yeah, it was just kind of used our physicality, converted some 4th and 1s, things like that, So there was, the fates, were on our side that day. Just, we, I don't think it was luck because we were playing hard, but we caught the ball well. I think I was 1 for 4 in the first half. I was terrible, but I think we were like 10 for 11 in the second half. So it was complete like change, but it wasn't a strategy thing or anything like that. It was just that we were bigger and stronger and we were able to hold the ball, and the funny thing about the last drive that Mike was talking about. So when we scored to make it 36-35 and I got killed. I mean, I was playing, I had a bruised sciatic nerve from and I missed the game before that. So I was in basically like a body cast and not moving, which probably helped because I stayed in the pocket, which one of my chief criticisms was I didn't stay in the pocket too long, and they were probably right. But so I get KO'd on that last pass to Billy Pilconis, who, God bless him, he's passed too. And so they ran out and kicked the extra point. And a lot of people this went into play next year in the other 36-35 game you were talking about, that you got to go for 2, makes it a 3-point game. So in overtime, there were no overtimes in that time. Yeah. So when they were driving down, people are, this kid's close, we're going to lose this game, 38-36, and then that kind of what we felt it like at the end. But I said, it was just, I don't think any major changes. We just we were bigger and stronger than they were. And it was, and just be able to keep them off the field. All he would have needed was one good drive, and nothing would have happened, So yeah.
Yeah. Greg, I was thinking, obviously, with your years of experience as a basketball coach, the thing that I'm sure everyone saw in the video clip before this interview, and I couldn't see it in the stands that day, was the look in the eyes of the West Virginia defense.
Yeah.
As you guys kept on scoring, as Pitt kept on scoring, it was the hands on the hips. There wasn't much talking, and it's interesting because that I don't want to say it was preordained, but there were the psychology of it was not good. I'm sure you experienced that. What do you do as a coach when you see that? Can you do it?
No, yeah. When you mentioned that, the psychology of it, of course, I have a brother who's a clinical psychologist. We've talked about that. And you see that look in their face. Like you said, the hands on the hips, indicative of a lot of things, the body language. As a coach, the only thing you could, of course, I've seen it happen a lot of times where the coaches were the same way. They had the look in their face, which is a bad sign. But, as a coach in the times I faced things like that, you just gotta keep plugging and keep doing what you know you can do and what you're good at. And so many times, like Mike said, Coach Bowles saying, well, you've owned these guys. Well, that gets in the head of players when they're ahead 35-8 or whatever it is, and they kind of let off the gas and they change what they typically do. They start doing different things, and when you start doing different things, you're destined to fail because you're not doing what you're good at doing. So as a coach, you just try to make sure that you keep doing what you've always done. And one of the criticisms you'll hear today of our coach is, he'll go for it on 4th and 1 from his own 45 or whatever. Those are things that if you're made up to do those things, that's what you do. And if you start changing all these things, then you're not going to be real successful. And I think just as a coach, you just try to get them focused on the things that they're doing well, the things they're good at doing, and keep doing those things. And like you said in that video, though, you can see the the hands on the side, the look in the face. You can see that. And like I said, I've probably had that look on my face before, but I've seen coaches with that look as well. And not a whole lot you can do when that ball starts rolling downhill like that.
Yeah, and if you look back at the film, you see Leon Jenkins, number 21, Mike.
Yeah.
Actually playing sort of a linebacker. He's up on the line a lot. And Leon was a terrific defensive back. The other thing, Dave, about that film that strikes me is that you guys set up the comeback with terrific running off tackle. But when you passed the ball, you did a lot of passing to your running backs. Those running backs owned the day. There were 3 of them, but I remember one on the film that we kept was pass to Esposito that he was wide open. I think probably on a 15-yarder. And on that pass to Bill Polkonis at the end, he was wide open in the end zone on a 3rd and 4. And it was just amazing how wide open he was as a tight end.
Because we ran a pick, Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you said that because we're going to submit.
That's right. A protest. We're going to protest. Yeah, we got to protest.
One of the things, Frank, that really hurt us defensively that day was, the guy that the defense was built around was Dale Farley.
Playing,
and he didn't get to play that day. And you take that game and then you compare it to the Syracuse game that we played, and there's one point in the Syracuse game late in the game where they're going to score to go ahead, and they've got the ball 1st and goal on like the 3-yard line, and Dale Farley made 4 straight tackles on the goal line to stop them, and so it's just one of those things where everything aligned against us in that second half.
Well, in the years that have passed, this game doesn't go away. In fact, Dave, I had a chance a couple of years ago to listen to an interview you did on WTAE. I think it must have been 8 or 9 years ago, for obviously a Pittsburgh audience, talking about the game and with the book and everything, and obviously appreciate all the promoting work that Greg did. It still lives, and yet we've all been involved in a lot of rivalries, and we know that there is, I think, some back and forth between Pitt and West Virginia, but there is also a lot of respect between the 2 schools, and maybe, and Dave and I were talking about this the other day, maybe it's our shared, and I'll use the word disdain for Penn State. That's my thought. Why this and also I might mention the 1989 game. It almost happened again, this time in Mountaineer Field, West Virginia. I don't know, were you at that game? Does that ring a bell, Greg? 89?
Yeah, there was one where we were ahead 31-9, I think. They come back and tied it on a field goal at the end. Yes, I was there.
All in the 4th quarter.
Yeah.
And field goal, I think, at the 3 or 4 seconds, it's 31-31. Yeah, I learned about that from our good friend Dale Wolfley, and he was a junior, I think, that year. And I went back and watched the film of that game, and it's just, how could this happen? So it almost happened again.
Yeah,
Frank, that particular game, I was back here in Bel Air at the time, and I took Joey Galloway, played for us here in Bel Air, and then went on to Ohio State in the Seahawk game. He was a senior at Bel Air at the time, and I took him down to see that game, and I was there, and I thought, boy, I've seen this before.
And Frank, you were talking about the looks on the players' faces and the coaches and all that. Being at a game like that, it's also in the crowd, in the fans. You can feel it. You can just feel the tension in the air. And that night, I remember it well. My buddies and I, we had season tickets and went, and When that second half started, we were like, man, it's just something's not right. You can just feel it. So I said, I think that's even in the crowd too. So you wonder sometimes if it's just not meant to happen, you know.
Yeah, and it's not just football. How many
Yeah.
times does it happen in basketball for
Oh,
Pete's
yeah.
sake, other
Yep.
sports as well?
Yep.
Well, this has been great, guys. Any final comments you want to make? Let's start with Dave, and then Mike, and then we'll close with Greg. So, any final comments, Dave, as you reflect on the game and the rivalry over the years?
Well, yeah. Well, again, thanks. This has been fun. It's been nice to finally get a chance to meet Mike, and had a lot of respect for him over the years. But I hope they can keep this rivalry. We were beset now, with people like knocking down tradition. It's something that's, over the years, we grow longer in the tooth. And like I said, I got, with Zeke and guys that I played with down in Wheeling and guys that I've run into over the years. And I'm sure Mike is the same way too. There was something about playing in, for your home school and things like that, and having a tradition of rivalries that are harsh, but they're still a modicum of respect, for each other, and that, and I think maybe because we're similar, and that's my concern, is just coming to the end of my coaching career now and things like that. I'm just watching. I said, this is ball, and it really makes up for a whole lot of stuff, that goes on. And I think we're losing that. And that's a concern. And I don't know if that's the 75-year-old guy talking, or if it's the guy that, might for once in his life be right. How important these games are. And, here we are, Mike and I were talking 52 years later, like, we just walked off the field, and I think that that's an important thing, not only for the guys who play, but for the people who go to the stands, people who follow the game. And that's, I'm a little sad at that.
Yeah, it was, it was always a big thing to play against these teams where, at that time, you only really knew about the teams regionally. We didn't know, like now guys, they've been to camps together in the summer. Everything's on TV. Everybody knows everyone. We only knew the guys in our little world, and I know especially for the guys that we had a lot of Western PA guys there playing for us. And I know that pit game was huge for them, and if you played at Pitt or West Virginia, whether you had ever been part of it, it became a big part of you, that rivalry. And like Dave said, I certainly hope they can figure out a way to keep it going, because it's a great rivalry, and it's a fun rivalry. And I think it's one where, although there's a lot of competitive spirit, it's still a friendly kind of rivalry, and that people respect each other and all. And of course, back then, like Dave said, everybody was kind of local. And now the teams, you look at the teams, the kids are from all over the country, and especially now with the portal, guys are coming in and going. And so I enjoyed the rivalry, and I thought it was terrific. And like Dave, I really appreciate you guys having us on and giving us a chance to be remembered a little bit.
Well, we want to thank you too. In fact, we have a graphic that we're showing on the show that fans voted who are the best, from your perspective, best quarterbacks at these two schools all time. And Dave, you're in the top 20, and Mike, you're in the top 10. So
That's right.
People out there that do remember and do respect, and you well know. Both of these schools have had some incredible quarterbacks. I mean, you had the passing record until a guy named, what was his name? Dan Marino. I think he played a little pro ball. Dan Marino broke Dave Havern's record.
I was just going to say thank you, both of you guys. It's so much fun to hear these stories and to relive this past year. Frank and I talked many times about legacies and trying to keep these legacies alive. You guys clearly have left the mark on both your schools and each other's schools for that matter. And it's so important to keep these legacies alive. And, we're talking about the rivalry and how it really is probably a friendly rivalry. I never realized that. I'm from Southern West Virginia and lived there my whole life, and we hate Pitt, but I've been in Morgantown now for quite a while working. I live in, during the week, I stay with my brother in Bridgeport, Ohio, which I think is pretty close to Bel Air. So, you know, you're around a lot of people from Morgantown, then in Bridgeport and Wheeling and all the way down through there. And you realize that we're all the same people culturally. I mean, it's just a like person. And I think that's what makes the rivalry, you know, a friendly rivalry yet competitive. And I think it's important for us to do things like this to keep that alive and to keep people informed and to keep these legacies alive. I think it's so important for all of us. And it has been an absolute pleasure for me to meet you, Dave, and to talk to Mike again. It's so much fun to listen to you guys talk about the past and to hear these stories. It's just super fantastic. We appreciate you.
Well, I can tell you personally, is my life is a lot richer because of folks like you, no question about that. And I got the chance to meet all of you because of Mountaineer football. And so that speaks there. So for Greg Christ, we really appreciate Dave and Mike being with us. And that does it from here. Well, there we go. You know, this is a beautiful example of technology, guys. I'm trying to outsmart the system, and the system outsmarts you, because that video I just showed, the audio and the video completely out of sync all afternoon, and lo and behold. So I apologize to everyone, but we got a chance to see it and include the game film. And we're joined right now by a guy by the name of Mr. Bob Zitelli from McKees Rocks, Pennsylvania. And I'll put a little information up here. Bob started at left guard in the 1970 Pitt game, and I was watching that number as he was clearing the way for Gresham and Braxton and Eddie Williams. Bob, thanks for joining us.
It's great to be heard, Frank. And I don't know if it's great, Greg, having us on the program this evening. Hello to my roommate, Mike Sherwood, and my childhood friend of Dave. I'm trying to figure out probably Little League days. We go back when we're 8 years old. And here we are, 74, 75, my brother, and we get a chance to see each other in a few more weeks once again.
Yeah.
Looking
Well,
forward.
I got to put a plug in. Bob does a great job fundraising for scholarships in his hometown, the Stowe Rocks area, and Dave's going to be the keynote speaker. And Dave has asked me to write his speech. Isn't that true?
Somebody's got to help. Yeah.
No, you don't want that. Any rate, Mickey, you had a chance to watch this. Dave obviously was part of it yesterday, and Bob was, before I turn to Bob, your thoughts about the video and that what these guys had to say.
Well, I'll tell you, first of all, Dave, it's a real pleasure meeting you here this evening. Although I didn't play in that game, I did have the opportunity to watch it back in the day. And, you know, it brings back so many great memories, as you guys alluded to earlier in the show. The tradition, the rivalry, the backyard brawl. I mean, college football just does not get any better than that from a traditional perspective. And I can remember when I first met Bob Zitelli, and good to hear from you again this evening, Bob, as well. But Bob started telling me about this Big 33 Western Pennsylvania Athletic Conference. I'm not sure I had the terminology exactly right there, but the proving ground from which a number of players came out of from both Pitt and West Virginia. And as Greg alluded to, you know, we're all people from the same region of the country, and we have the same values. You know, the tradition of Eastern football, the fact that Syracuse beats Penn State and Pitt that year, and then we turn around and beat Syracuse in the last game of the season. I mean, the tradition of Saturday afternoons, just for me, doesn't get any better than that. It's a real honor to meet you this evening, Dave. And I had a couple of questions for you as I watched that game film. You know, that first 2-point conversion that you went for in the game to make it 35-8. You took the ball in yourself, if I recall correctly, right? On a quarterback.
Yeah, it was in the first half, Mick. Yeah, I think, that was the first score. Yeah.
Yeah, and you barely got in the end zone, as I recall, right? It was like a step or two.
Yeah, I was never that fast, so that's not a problem. But I got banged up a couple games before that. I missed the previous game, but I was playing like with a bruised sciatic, which I can point to right now because it still hurts. But I had a like almost I guess, an early flak jacket on,
Okay.
and so I really wasn't mobile, but I don't think it'll slow me down that much. But yeah, I remember just getting in, but I got it, it's like, yeah,
You got it in. You got it in.
yeah.
That's an important thing. And I
Wasn't
think,
pretty.
that one play plus the play where you guys went for the first down at about the 11-yard line late in the game and barely got it by half of football. I mean, those two plays to me, you hear that phrase, football is a game of inches. And, it certainly is. Those two plays are very, very indicative of it. The
Bobby,
swing.
You'll know who that, Bobby, that was Spats. Remember that Tony Esposito, another guy from the Rocks, a high school teammate of Bobby's, was our
All
fullback.
right.
And I remember we just running a real quick little fullback slip penetration in the A gap between the left guard and the center. And Spats made a move before I gave him the ball. That was like, it was a remarkable for a guy who's 6'2", about 220, to have that kind of dexterity. But that was like it. And I thought about that a couple of times. That's, he's this far away from, not getting a fourth down, but he made this incredible move before he got the football to beat that guy who beat us through the A gap. So stuff like that happened, Mick. Yeah.
Yeah. It all comes down to the play on the field. But I just hope that we get the Pitt WVU rivalry instilled in the future the way it was in the past. I know we play each other again, this year, and then 2026, or we're taking 2025 off.
I know it's this year. Yeah.
I think we're on the schedule for 2026 also, I saw. But I like to see it every year, man. There's just not a better game when it comes down. Down here in the Southeastern Conference where I live in the Atlanta area, you got your Alabama, Auburn, you got your Georgia Tech, Arkansas, Texas. Of course, that rivalry be gone, break up of the Texas and Oklahoma leading the Big 12. But there's just nothing that approaches it. In terms of tradition, as Frank often says, we stand on the shoulders of others. And what a great memory to go back and look at that, and just what a game.
Yeah.
And I think it shows you one thing in life, just to sum up here, is you may think how things are going to turn out in life, but I think football is a good indicator that oftentimes when you see the handwriting on the wall, it doesn't quite turn out the way you thought it was going to.
Yeah. Very well stated, Mickey. Bob, get you in on this too. The emotions speak to the emotions of the game from your perspective.
Well, I think it's the competitive athletes. You have the highs to the highs, the lowest to the lows, and everything in between. Myself, I just remember when we were getting ready to play the freshman game up at Aliquippa, right in the heart of the Golden Panther territory there, Beaver County. And Mike, I hope you remember this. The bus broke down on our way up about 15 miles out of Morgantown. And we had to wait for them to send a second bus to us to get us up to Aliquippa. And that game was a nightmare. And you talk about rear end whipping, that the Panthers surely put us at a great disadvantage that game. We couldn't get anything started. They did a job on us. Kudos to the Panthers that night. So I had a burning desire to get back, and the time came when we went up there our senior year, for payback. We were sky high. The whole game, second half was the exact opposite. My very good friend Dave engineered a great comeback. We refer to Dave as a comeback kid back here in Pittsburgh. And the emotions, you're going from one extreme to the other. Could have heard a pin drop on the bus on the way back home. And who the hell wanted to eat a ham sandwich and a chocolate chip cookie on the way back? We just had to, and we still live with it. in my conversation with Dave, we were talking, I don't know, about a month or so ago, and I said, Dave, I said, please, a lot of people at our scholarship luncheon are going to hear about that 36-35 game. So there was a very short moment of silence. And then Dave, that prankster that he is, he said, Bob, are you sure you want to relive that again? I said, no, please do. I need humbled a bit. So I'm sure there's going to be a great interest in reliving that ball game from Dave's perspective. I think, you know, the Duke game, Mike alluded to the Duke game. Score was what, 21-13, Mike? Do you remember what the final was on that Duke score? I can't recall. I want to say it was 21-13 or 24-13 or something, but we couldn't get anything going. And it was a homecoming game of all things. And so that kind of put us in a, in a psychological, well, what are we going to do next week? We're going up to Pitt, but we went into it with a great attitude. Coach Biden was able to rally us after the Penn State game. I remember the conversation in the locker room telling us, look, you got 5 games left to do something for yourselves, and let's get on track and do what we have to do. Finish the season at, once again, I believe it was 8-3, hoping to go back to Atlanta for the Peach Bowl, but that never happened, even though we were in contention for a few other games. And remember, there just weren't that many bowl games back in that. So it was an honor. Emotionally, myself, playing for West Virginia University, you have your teammates and you have your people on campus, and Dave knows it and Mike knows it. It's that you're playing for the whole state. You're playing for the whole university, and your performance is a reflection of what you've put into it, and you only get out of it what you do put into it. So, each and every day at practice, every game, it's kind of unusual, but unless you go through it, you're not really paying attention to what's happening in the stands. Your focus is on, what the play call is and what it is at that moment. Dave and Mike, both being collegiate coaches, know that the coach's goal is to train and have your players. And the question is, how will they react in the face of adversity? How are they going to raise the occasion of coming back? How are you going to perform under stress? So, we've seen that time and time again. And, my respect for Dave is great. And, David growing up and watching him play through Montour High School and University of Pittsburgh, Dave was that individual, whether it was baseball, basketball, or football. He was going to be that guy. It might have been a touchdown pass. It might have been a base hit to win the baseball game. It might have been a steal and making a layup to win the ball game. But, David was a pack of dynamite, and he was going to make the big play. It just a matter of when it was going to happen. But the second half of the Pitt game, it happened play after play after play after play. I think we had the ball maybe 12 or 15 plays the whole second half.
Yeah.
I'm still trying to figure out if Sindrich hit me harder or Lloyd Weston hit me harder. I don't know. My bones are still aching.
Yeah.
I shouldn't like Bobby Zatelli, at all. We grew up together. He grew up in McKees Stowe, and I grew up in Kennedy Township, part of Montour. But we played against I think, Bobby, you were a Dodger, and I was a Senator in a Little League, and then we played against each other in Pony League, and then he played at Stowe Rocks, their combination of Stowe and McKees Rocks. Great rivalry. Our senior year, he kicks our butt all over the field. It was a horrible loss, worst loss I've ever had in my life at Montour. And then he goes to West Virginia. So there's like, and then to the cherry on the Sunday is he marries one of the prettiest girls out of my high school, Nancy. So there's no reason I should like this guy, but he's such a damn good guy. You gotta love him.
Hey,
That's right. Oh boy.
Make sure you tell Nancy I said that too, Bobby.
I will do that. You know, like I said, we talk about the high school rivalry in the championship game, Montour Stowe Rocks, and Dave had the long rock across the field. We met each other and embraced each other, and wished each other luck. And then I had to do the twice to David after the freshman game when they kicked our rear ends. And then I had a very, very long walk trying to get across the field up at Pitt Stadium in that 36-35 game. But, our relationship has been very, very close for, maybe 65 years.
Wow.
It's a long
I was
time.
very, very fortunate to hook up with my roommate, Mike Sherwood, from Bel Air, Ohio. My claim to fame is Mike and I were the only two in the room together for 4 years, so there's a great respect. And I did a lot of bootlegging and a lot of trap for Mike on his calls, but there's only one other guy that I would have loved to pull off for on a bootleg, and that would be my man Dave Havern. But our paths took different across. So I'd have loved to pull off for a bootleg on that guy.
Well,
But,
that's nice of you to say. That ain't going to happen anymore.
I think I got a fourth quarter left. I might be a little slower, but I'm going to get it going.
Hey, Mickey, we're observers to a love affair here, I think, between you two guys.
Yeah, I think so.
No, it's athletic respect. And by the way, before I'm going to turn to you, Dave and Mickey, for final comments, but my mind's working a little bit slowly today. We were talking, Dave and I, about that before the show on that Duke game. And one of the reasons West Virginia got thrown a curve on that 1970 Duke game is the quarterback for Duke, Leon Hart, was leading the country in passing, and Duke came into Mountaineer Field and ran the hell out of the ball. And it was really a prelude of what was going to happen in Pitt the next week. The difference was, well, it really wasn't a difference. Duke beat West Virginia by just running the ball, short gains, but persistently short gains. And then it carried over the next week. But anyway, Dave, let me turn to you for final comments. Then Mickey, you bring us home, and I'll push the end of stream. And we're running a little bit late tonight, but that's because of the technical difficulties. But Dave, it really was an honor and a pleasure to have you with us tonight.
No, Frank, I enjoyed the hell out of it. It was good to meet Mickey and Daryl and those guys, and of course be on with Bobby and Mike Sherwood, who I've had immense respect and hadn't had a chance to meet. But it seems like there's so many, just so many intertwining relationships in this rivalry. And it was kind of cool to be a part of it. I mean, obviously here we are 52, whatever it is, years later, still talking about it. So it's something that was certainly near and dear to us. I think being Western Pennsylvania guys, I think that's an important thing. I think we can't lose sight of that. But unfortunately, it's always about the money. And so until somebody comes up with some way, it's like what happened to the old Steel Bowl in basketball. That was a great weekend, where the heck's that anymore, So anyway, I appreciate you guys doing this show. We have great respect for the Mountaineers. It is not a friendly rivalry, but it's a respectful rivalry. I'm not going to lie to you, that. But it was a pleasure being on with you guys and meet you guys. I appreciate your hospitality and you putting up with my ramblings.
Oh, no ramblings at all. Mickey, final word from you, and then we'll end it for tonight.
Well, in the interest of time here, I think I pretty much got my 2 cents worth in here. Dave, again, pleasure meeting you. It's always great to know the people that you competed with and the people you competed against. And we're all cut from the same ilk. And just hope the tradition can continue in the future of the backyard brawl. Ain't nothing like it anywhere.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I'll make a bet on going back to the future, where this, rather than continuing to expand with ever larger conferences, I think we're going to see some subdivisions, and it's going to be regional. I think you're going to see Virginia Tech, Pitt, Syracuse, you know, the Mountaineers, all those teams, I think probably playing again. This is getting crazy with, you know, with Washington in the Big Ten and West Virginia having to go to Stillwater, Oklahoma.
Yeah.
I think sometimes sanity takes a while, but we sort of catch ourselves before we really go over the cliff. But Dave's right. The money's got to be there, and I think it will be. Well, thanks everybody for hanging with us, those who watched live with the glitch we had earlier, but also those that are going to watch archive version. Labor of love tonight. You take care. We're going to be back with you. We're going to be back with you next week. And as we said earlier, we're going to be focusing on basketball now that the season's over, looking at the Gale Catlett era. And we hope, if we're lucky, pray to God, the coach will be with us. Daryl's working on that, but we don't know. We'll see if that works out. Anyway, for Greg Christ, who couldn't be here tonight, and by the way, happy birthday to Dave Gorby, his sidekick on his Thursday night show. This is Frank Fear for Mickey and Dave and Bob. Thanks for being here. Take care, everybody.